It's 6:59. It's 6:59. He came up with this whole new intro with the earth spinning, or is that just Wednesdays now? I don't know, I'm not allowed to talk to him anymore. Good evening. I was waiting for the intro. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Monday night workshop. Hello, everybody out in internet land. Hello, everybody here in Franciscan land. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight and for watching us. I hope everyone's doing good. You know, the flu just keeps coming back and forth and back and forth, so hopefully we're on the end of this. I wanted to make note that finally we have a training at the end of this month. It's March 23rd to the 25th, I believe, so it's an Omega 1, and I think there's 30, 40 people already registered, but there's still room. So if you want to register, please visit us on omegavector.org, right here. That's so simple, omegavector.org. If I got it in the middle of my head. All right, and then just go on that website. You'll be able to register right from there. So this evening, I wanted to talk about a funny little subject about how we human beings seem to be invested in being liked. From little children all the way up until adolescent years, not adolescent years, elder years. I didn't want to say old while I was looking at the two of you. But our elder years, we're invested in being liked. We want approval, and especially in today's day with the social media, the likes and the winks and the smiles and thumbs up signs, we seem to get offended when we have somebody who doesn't like us. I wrote this in the commentary when we sent out the announcement. I was sick last weekend, last week, and I was watching Frasier. I was watching reruns of Frasier. I loved him when he was on. And there was a funny little episode where he was doing a focus group, where a group of people came in and they listened to his show, and there must have been about 12 or 15 people, and everyone's going, "Oh, that was great, that was really good," and they're giving praises, and then one person who kind of just didn't say anything, and the gentleman who was running the focus group said, well, what about you? And he goes, "Yeah, I guess I just didn't like it." And that was it. It was really simple. No, like, not jerk. Well, it devastated Frasier. He went, and then, you know, the Frasier show, things always seem to go wrong for him. So he went and hunted this man down and kind of pinned him down to try to get him to tell why he didn't like him, and he ends up burning the guy's business down. It was pretty funny. But the concept is not too far off. When we discover somebody doesn't like us, we get, "Something's wrong, what do you mean?" I was thinking about how children are susceptible to this especially. I remember one time I was disciplining one of my grandchildren, and she's off in the corner crying. I'm like, "What's going on?" And my daughter comes up, she goes, "Oh, she thinks you don't like her." And I'm like, "Well, no, I just told her no." But, you know, she was devastated because she thought I didn't like her. And that's how we can get sometimes. Even if we have an adult body, if we discover somebody doesn't like us, we end up like that little kid, screaming and yelling. And so it's not a topic that we're not familiar with. And there's really not many solutions. I mean, psychology has taken their shot at it. Spirituality has taken its shot at education. So I went and looked up in the Forbes magazine for the workplace, in the Forbes magazine in 2015. There was an article published that said 13 habits of exceptionally likable people. So of course, first I thought, well, how did they find the likable people? How do you find who's the most likable person? And then, you know, I did a couple of Google searches, and it turns out that Jennifer Lawrence is the most likable actress in Hollywood now. And years back, Carol Burnett was the most likable person on TV. I was like, okay, well, I understand that. So then I started looking at the characteristics of them. So here's the 13 characteristics of the most highly exceptional, likable people. So the first thing I thought of was they ask questions, which is like active listening. So most of us have a tendency when somebody's speaking, we're building our reply, or we're thinking, what are they saying? How does this apply to me? Is what they're saying right or not wrong? Like our mind is going, and we're not fully engaged in, I don't know what that sign is. We're not fully engaged in Active listening, that's the pop phrase, active listening. Oh, I wanted to jump back for a second. The other person they said was the most likable is Ellen, if anyone knows Ellen DeGeneres. And I was like, wow, she does. She matches a lot of these two. So anyway, active listening, that means you ask questions. Asking questions, holding the eye contact, sometimes repeating it for clarification. When somebody is being asked questions, you feel like they're paying attention to you. And you know what it's like when you're talking to someone and you get that blank stare. My husband says I do that to him a lot when he's talking about something I really don't care about. I can't hide it, but I get this like blank stare in my eyes. Or sometimes I'm just tired and he's going on one of his wonderful, beautiful orations about something. And I'm trying to listen, but I know it happens. But you know, when you have that, you don't talk anymore. You just feel like, well, it's not even worth speaking. Number 2, they put away their phones. I actually love this one. In the generation today, it's like glued in our hands. And even when we ask you to take your phones and put them down, no, we can't. I know I talked about this before, perhaps maybe not here, but there was a gentleman who realized the millennials that are coming into the workforce now are so attached to this. He actually gave permission company-wide for people to be texting while they're doing their job. It was a call center, I think. So here they are on phone calls and texting they still got their phones. Production went up. It was, the board was like, no, you can't do this, but they're multitaskers and they need this. So that's one thing. However, a highly likable person puts that down. They don't do this when the phone rings, or they look and go like this, or I'm sure you had this experience. You'll be having a conversation. Oh, excuse me. And then they often take the phone, or hold on a second, and they go like that. Oh no, keep talking, I'm listening. When somebody says that, I sometimes just walk away. I know you're not listening, and don't say to me that you're listening when you're doing this. I know you're not listening to me. Or I'll say goofy things like elephants are on roller skates, or something to see if they're actually paying attention, and most of the time they're not. The third one is they're genuine. This is also another thing that's a little, I wanted to use the word noble here, but genuine means that you're not under false pretense, that you're not looking, you know, when you have a conversation with someone, you know they're just looking for something. I don't want to say salesman, but that would be something, you know, there's a hidden agenda. Genuine doesn't have a hidden agenda. They're just a genuine individual. They're going to talk to you the way they would talk to anybody. So that would be considered genuine. I mean, like they're not going to treat you less than them. They're just pure and no I think I've already said it, but no agendas behind the scenes. Number 4 is they don't pass judgment. This is a little difficult to do in the office because everyone stands, well, the phrase used to be the water cooler. Everyone goes to the water cooler and they go, hey, did you see that Linda did da 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 da, or Pierre said da da da. We don't, that's gossip, right? So a judgment would be a person who doesn't do that. They might even be the individual who says, hey guys, I don't think that's appropriate talk. So an individual who doesn't judge really can give the personification of not judging. Again, I know you know what it feels like to be sitting there talking to someone and they're judging you or judging others, wanting to draw you into that conversation. The next one is, oh, this is fun. They don't seek the attention. So I've had this experience in my life before where I'll be having a conversation with the individual and the person who's talking to me is not looking at me. They raise their voice a little bit louder and they're looking around to see who's listening to their funny conversation. You're like, who are we talking to? It's very, very funny. And then I've also had the experience of little kids. They'll talk to you, but they're looking at themselves in the mirror. But they're talking to you, but they're looking at themselves in the mirror, and they're doing little, and I'm sure it's because they now have such Snapchat and, you know, let's make funny faces and stuff like that. But I think it's very funny that you have a conversation, they don't even look at you. They're just like, well, whatever. That makes me laugh. So not seeking attention also means they don't interrupt you with their own stories. Like you'll be telling them a story about vacation, and then you go, oh, when I went on vacation, flat out interrupt them and take the story to be about you. That would be another thing. The next one is they're consistent. This one's was a little bit odd for me to understand, but it means reliable and even keeled. So if they're having a bad day, they're still going to treat you the same way. If they're just got really negative feedback, they're still going to treat you in the manner of, I would say, respect and understanding, and working with making you feel valuable. The next one is positive body language. I love this one. Have you ever had the conversations where people are standing there like this? Why would you even want to engage in a conversation with them, but they stand there like that? You know they're agitated and upset, so the best thing would be, okay, well, I'm going to let you go, and then not try to engage them. You can also have where you could tell when they're getting agitated about what you're saying. They do the back up thing, the hands on the hips, the rolling of the eyes or facial expressions. Now, some people don't realize they do this, but they go, ugh, and it affects the people you're talking to, but they're in their own mind not recognizing, passing it out to you. So again, they're have positive body language. This one was unique. They leave a strong first impression. The research says that most people will form an opinion about you, whether they like you or not, within the first 7 seconds of meeting you. 7 seconds, I'm still trying to remember what your name is. And yet research says 7 seconds is all we have. 7 seconds for me to determine whether or not I'm going to like you or not. And then it continued on by saying that if you're in a conversation with somebody, within the first 7 seconds, they determine whether or not they like you, and then the rest of the conversation, they're justifying whether or not they did like you or they don't like you. So if they chose not to like you, they'll be, oh yeah, see, that's why I don't like them. And if they did choose to like you, oh, see, right, I was right, this is. So it's intriguing to me. 7 seconds is all it takes for someone to make up their mind. I'm in a lot of deep doo-doo then. Then, they greet people by name. This is a pet peeve of mine. Not just because I have a different name. Anne Marie is not tremendously different, and I understand how it could get mixed up with Mary Ann. I've had that happen before, truly not offended, but what really gets to me is if I'm meeting a person that I have met on more than one occasion, have spent time with them more than an hour or so, and they still can't get my name right. They'll call me Anne, which Anne is like nails on a chalkboard for me. I don't know why, it's just Anne. All the Anns out there, beautiful people, love you, thank you. That's your mother? Great woman. But for me, my ears just kind of just perk on, because it's like Anne Marie. So it's kind of like you stopped mid-sentence. Again, I understand the mix-up, but if I know you, and I've been working with you, and I find this mostly in a business setting, where there are people who don't take the time to want to learn my name, it feels quite disrespectful. And instead of correcting them, I know in the back of my head I do a little check mark, like, well, I'm not going to really engage with that person. So I kind of push them off because they don't have the time for me. I don't want to give them my attention. I know that's not what I should do. It's to embrace everybody, but every time there's a couple of people that I'm thinking of right now, the little check mark, because they just can't get Anne Marie. They just go Anne. And one guy kept calling me Emily. I don't know, how do you get Emily? But anyway, so it's the greeting people by name. And of course, you know what this is like. I love when you can call somebody by name and you're holding the eye contact when you say their name. We all know that too. If we're out in public and somebody says your name, it captures your attention. It's like your own vibration that we're called to. So calling somebody by name is very, very important. I was taught a long time ago that waitresses and waiters, if they don't ask or don't offer their name, you ask, just so they feel like you're having a conversation with them and it's not just this individual. Sometimes I'll even just ask the water people what their names are too, just to thank them for bringing the water. Then smile. Of course, not a Sheldon Cooper smile. That was a scary smile. You don't want to do the scary smiles, but a nice, gentle, polite smile. I always like to say smile with your eyes. Eye contact and you're smiling too, instead of or you could do the it's a genuine smile. So I would say that would be locked in with genuine as well, and holding the eye contact. Know when to open up. This is actually, I don't really mean to talk about myself so much today, but this is just actually a very funny story that I had a thud. So Mark and I went out to dinner with this couple. I'm nervous, I don't really know them, so I get jittery and stuff. Within 5 minutes of the conversation, I am talking about 9/11, my cousin who's a fireman who died in 9/11, how sad everything is, and you could just feel everything just go boom. We hadn't even ordered drinks yet. We're just sitting at the table, and thud is really what it just went, thud. And I realized what was happening, and I kind of went, and then the gentleman across from me said, well, on a lighter note, like just something. I was like, oh my God. So you have to know when to open up. There's appropriate times and places for you to open up. And then I would tag on, that means to notice when you are nervous, keep your mouth shut when you're nervous so you don't do those things. Oh, here's another one. Again, these are all the 13 habits of exceptionally likable people. It's knowing when to touch or who to touch. So some people you could do a touch on the shoulder or a touch on the back or, a little bump. And then there's some people you don't touch. So there's the idea of when to touch and when not to touch. I know in the corporate world I was always taught you always shake hands. Even if you go outside for dinner or something, it's always a handshake. And it surprises me when there's somebody that I'm in the office every day with and you say hello and a handshake. And if I go out to dinner with them the next night, they're hugging me goodbye. It's like, oh, wait, what do you do? But it's a little confusing, but mostly, who's appropriate and who's not appropriate to touch. That's so important. And then they balance passion with fun. I like this one a lot too. People at work, they're the jokesters, always cracking the jokes, never take anything serious. They're nice to have around, but when you want to get the job done, you don't want them there because you're in a meeting and the meeting can last 45 minutes extra because they're too busy being jovial. So there's a time and place for that, so there's a nice balance. I love the conversation or the little thing that they put with us. They said they minimize small talk and gossip and they go for meaningful conversations instead. And I really like that. The idea that I'm just going to go for a meaningful conversation rather than just, hey, who did what and how's the weather and so on and so forth. So when we bring it all together, it says likable people are invaluable and unique. They network with ease, promote harmony in the workplace, bring out the best in everyone around them, and generally seem to have the most fun. Okay, great. Now back to my subject, when people don't like us. So let's say you do all of these 13 things and you still have people who don't like you. That could be a bit of a quandary because, hey, it says this is a likable people. But let's just say that we know that there's people who don't like you, whether it's jealousy, or perhaps maybe you remind them of an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend, just your presence. Or it could just be something as simple, your personal hygiene, where people are like, Arr. So, they mean to do it like that, but yeah. Regardless of the reason why somebody dislikes us, what do we do? So what are some of the reactions that we do when somebody doesn't like us? Well, I thought about some of the things that I've seen and that I have discovered. So sometimes we investigate, like Frasier. Go investigate the person. Why is it they don't like me? Get on social media, find out who they like, who they don't like, what's going on, question them, being direct, hound them perhaps. We could do that. That could drive them nuts and make them not like us even more. We could use bribery. I've seen this happen, especially in the play arts. Somebody doesn't like you. Here, I bought you an ice cream, or they'll do something nice for you. So we use bribery to try to get them on our side, to flip them. We retaliate. We go out of our way to get everyone else to not like them. Did you hear what that person said about me? And on we go. And then you try to get your army to dislike that individual. We get emotional. Sometimes we get crushed, we get anger, anguish, even leads to depression. Why doesn't that person like me? This sometimes happens in a breakup of a relationship, the loss of a job, if we get negative feedback. I can't tell you how many times I've dealt with people who have feedback and they take it so personal and they're crying and we're in the workplace, so come on, it's feedback, that's all, thank you. But anyway, I'm sure the years that I've spent Omega has helped me develop the philosophy. It's just feedback, but I think perhaps maybe if I haven't been around this, I might be upset a little bit too if somebody starts telling me something that they didn't like about me. And that's not even the questions. Usually the questions are, what are areas of improvement? So I have a 360 form, and inside it says, what are the areas of improvement for X, Y, and Z? You give your statements and people get so offended. It's amazing. So emotional means we could take things personal. Then we have avoidance. So when I discover that somebody doesn't like me, and bribery didn't work, and retaliation didn't work, then I avoid them. This unfortunately happens in family, where family members won't be around each other because they're upset with so-and-so. So one will go here and one will go there, or they completely don't even go to an event if the other person is there. It can happen in the workplace. It's a little difficult at work, though. You're working. There's really not much else you can do. I've experienced this working with people and neighbors. When you have a neighbor that doesn't like you, that's hard too. So you have to learn how to work with them, but we do as much as possible to avoid them. And then, of course, we can flip it and we can have gratitude. Perhaps what they're saying is true, that maybe I am loud or obnoxious. No. But we do. We say things like, wow, well, maybe they're right. And we start looking at it. We take it as an opportunity to be grateful that maybe I didn't see that. I always used to like the illustration. Many years ago, there was a commercial where a businessman was walking through the airport or something like that. And as he's walking through, one assistant goes behind him and pulls this piece of tape that was stuck to the back of his jacket. Another one comes over and wipes some dander off of his shoulder. Another woman with a mirror comes up and takes a piece of spinach out of, oh no, sorry, I just gave it away. Another one comes up, he comes out of the bathroom and they step on the toilet paper that's stuck on his heels. So he's got all these people trying to keep him straight, and then he smiles and there's spinach in his teeth. But sometimes we can look at that and think, well, I'm grateful. That's why those people have given me the feedback, so I can appreciate it. And then that would lead me to having acceptance. Hey, you're not going to please everyone, and that's okay. You have the right to not like me, and that's fine when we're not invested in that. So in the 28 years I've been in Omega, I've had my fair share of people who don't like me. And whether it's because I'm too mean or too cold or too controlling, no. I remember George gave me guidance on this, and I won't forget this because it really stuck in my mind. He said that when you invest your entire life in whether or not people like you, or making people like you, if you invest your entire life in making people like you, you're doomed. If you invest your entire life in not making people like you, you're equally doomed. Because he said, as long as you have your attention out there, you're never free in here. You can't be of service. You can't be in front of the room and be invested that people like you, because you can't be real then. You have to do and play the game to get people to give you the thumbs up. So it's about balance. If I don't concern myself with what others thought, so if I'm not concerned about what you think of me, I have the freedom, but also responsibility, because I could be obnoxious, I could be rude, I could be disrespectful. Kind of reminds me of somebody. I won't be political. So I could be rude, obnoxious, and disrespectful, and I don't care what anybody thinks. So there is a freedom in that. However, you could take it to an extreme and you lose everybody. There's got to be that line. I also could be so concerned of what other people say about me that I lose the path to my own truth. I have to make sure I say what you like, and what you like, and what you like, and what you like, and what you like. I have to make sure that everyone's happy. That's a horrible place to live. So there's got to be a balance where I'm not so offensive, but I'm also true to who I am. I'm rude and disrespectful. I would use the word noble. I think the word nobility is beautiful right there. That means, to me, I think the best thing is, if I'm invested what you think of me, I'd be afraid to speak up, to give my opinion. I'd be terrified to give you feedback. If I really was invested what you thought, I would be terrified to do that. So I have to have a balance, an acceptance, I think, balance and acceptance. George used to say this a great deal. You might remember this. Never be too happy when everyone likes you, and never be too upset when everyone doesn't like you. Like, never take it to the extreme. There's got to be a nice centered balance there. But we have a tendency to say, hey, look, everybody loves me, and then, oh, nobody loves me. We go to those extremes, and we suffer for that. So there's got to be the balance and right in the center. I was thinking about how in staff in the trainings, sometimes people don't come back. And that's okay. We offend them and whatever's going on. But it's intriguing to me that whenever there's a person who doesn't come back but they're very angry, the staff member, our attendance person, will come back in and they'll want to tell me why that person's upset and why they're angry and why they're... And I usually stop them. I learned this from George. I stop them and say, I'm not interested in that right now. Now, I do this for two reasons. First of all, I don't want to focus on the person who didn't come back. I want to focus on the ones who did. They're here, and I'm getting ready to do a training. I don't need to hear roar. And the second thing is, I want to encourage the staff to accept rather than gossip. Because what they really are doing is gossiping. They're not just telling it to me, they're telling it to everybody in the staff. Everybody's got to know why this person is so angry and upset. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Because come to the end of the program, I can guarantee you people forgot. That's why that person did. It didn't matter. So you have to practice the acceptance. That's a very difficult thing to do because sometimes people want to get involved. Well, how dare you, and I'm going to defend you, and we take sides. We start choosing sides. Don't say that about me. Stop. So we have to practice the balance. It's hard to do. It's something that it takes the work. I guess that's what we call it, the work. It takes work to remind ourselves not to get wrapped up in the story, not to feed it with emotions. There was an article published in Psychology Today. This is, I believe it was 2012. It was written by Dr. Marsha Reynolds. She said, based on the need for social connection, your reactions to rejection, negative judgment, and stinging sarcastic remarks can range from minor hurt to bouts of depression, which is true. We can get our little feelings upset and be a little upset for a little bit, a little snippy, but then we can work it out. Or there are some people who literally do. They get upset, and this can lead us to so many other things: depression, addiction, death. I guess that's where the ultimate thing would be. The ability to let a show of dislike roll off your back is a learned skill. I think that's true. It's a learned skill to let it just roll over your back. No, that's okay. Let it roll off your back. You have to you have to consciously balance your need to be liked with the understanding what is true about the current situation. So perhaps you did something, you weren't paying attention. You turned left in front of somebody and you didn't realize they were there. So that person's blaring on the horn behind you. Well, we can get upset and agitated and flip them off and say, who do you think you are, and get all emotional. Or we can stop and think, was I in the wrong? Oh yeah, I guess I was. Dude, sorry. And we, try to clean the air right away. But sometimes hotheads get involved, and in Phoenix, we're the capital of freeway shootings especially when it's heat, when it's really hot out, what do they call road rage? We have road rage. Yay. Yay, Phoenix. That's what we're happy for. But that's what happens. It's all emotionally fueled. So if we could stop and think, okay, is this true? Did I do something unwarranted? Or did I indeed cut this individual off and I wasn't paying attention? Dr. Reynolds says, she gives us 4 things to consider. Catch yourself reacting defensively or shutting down. So if somebody says something or does something that you go, or you withdraw, why? Why is it so upsetting to you? Ask yourself what is true about the situation. As I already alluded to, perhaps maybe I did turn left in front of an individual. If you're sure the person meant to be negative, determine if their target was not you personally or your ideas. So was it about you as an individual, or was it about the ideas that you uphold? So of course we know the last political scene, which seemed like it lasted forever, but I think it was just 2 years. There was constant anger and debate, and I know I've talked about this before, where people are ripping out signs and screaming and yelling and fighting, and It was one of the worst political voting seasons that I've ever experienced in my life. And I truly hope the next one does not go anything like, I hope it's a lot more peaceful. However, that's what happens when we have emotions and people take things personal. What do you mean? Who do you think you are? And we take fixed positions and then, of course, fight again. So there's a difference between what I'm talking about and who I am. So I might take a position of the opposing candidate, but it doesn't mean that me as a person is any different. I'm still the same person. I just have a different point of view. That's all. And then if you believe that the person doesn't like you, ask yourself if it matters. I really like this idea. Does it really matter that Donald Trump doesn't like me? No, I don't care. I didn't mean to say Donald Trump, it just popped out. Hillary Clinton, there. Does it really matter either one of them like me or not? No, they're not even in my life. They don't even exist. So if we go with people who are in my life, does it matter if my in-laws like me? Well, yeah, that does. I want to keep the peace. I want to make sure that I'm pleasant and amicable to them. So I'm polite. So yes, I go out of my way to make sure that there's a balance and an equilibrium in the family. Does it matter if my neighbors like me? Well, to a degree, yes. I want to be a polite neighbor. I don't want to trash anybody else's yard, keep the music down, so on and so forth. Does it matter if my husband loves me? Likes me. Does it matter if my husband likes me? Yes, he better love me, and I own him. There's a ring on my finger. I didn't mean to say I own you with a fist. I meant, so there are some people we really do try to please, and then there's some people who doesn't. Does it matter the guy in Arby's doesn't like me? No. Does it matter that the person who's in the cash register at any store, does it matter if they really like me or not? No. So I have to really put 2 cents on that. There's a great story George talked about how he went into Radio Shack one year to go, when Radio Shack was around, to buy a Walkman. There's a really old phrase, but a Walkman, which is a cassette for his granddaughter. So he went into this Radio Shack, and the gentleman was just rude and disrespectful. George was a bit older, so the guy was like, you don't know what you're talking about, rah, 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 rah. And kind of just, George walked out. He was so upset, he walked out. He got in his car, put the key in the car, and he sat there and thought, well, this is fine. I'm upset, I'm angry, and I still don't have a Walkman. And he said, now, did I go in there to be treated nice, or did I go in there to get a Walkman? Well, he went to get the Walkman. So he did. He went back in and went to the same salesperson to say, hey, I forgot to get the Walkman. And the guy wasn't any better. He was still kind of rude and but George decided, I don't want to take that personal. So we all have the ability to do that. It doesn't matter how we're being treated. But somehow we have this idea that because I'm here, you should treat me wonderfully. I'm here. I deserve your honor and respect now. I command it. I will say this. So the entitled generation that we have happening now, our next generation, they're entitled. Meaning everything should just be given to them because I'm here. What do you mean I don't get that? What do you mean I don't get a car? What do you mean I don't have money when I ask you? What do you mean you're not going to let me drive wherever? What do you mean you're not going to take me here? What do you mean we're not going on vacation? Like there's the expectation that everything should come to play. I think this is funny in the workplace. What do you mean I'm not going to get a raise after 1 month of working there? What do you mean I'm not a supervisor? Again, after 1 month of working. Well, I'm qualified. Well, what are your qualifications? I saw a really cute YouTube commercial. There was a gentleman, maybe my age, and there was a young girl, and she's like this. And he's, the whole entire interview, and he looks at her and says, so it says on your resume that you are, what was the word? Electronically diversified or something like that. And she goes, yes. She looks up, yes, and then goes back down again. And he said, so you can do Excel? Oh, no. And she goes back down and he goes, so you could do Word? Oh, no. And she's literally doing this, and he goes, so what is it that you're qualified in? She goes, oh, well, Snapchat and Pinterest and Twitter. And he looks at her, and he goes, not Facebook? And she goes, that's for old people, which I thought was funny. And then she goes back to doing this, and he goes, well, but there's going to be some files I'm going to send you. You're going to need to do some research. And she goes, oh, you don't need to worry about that. I'll just ask Siri. You know, ask Siri, hey Siri, oh, sorry, sorry, don't talk.
It's okay.
I need to make that a New Yorker voice. But anyway, the commercial was really funny because it really does show the difference in our ages. And we get offended at that. We get offended that we don't have their attention or their technology is quite different than us. So we can't take it personal. So for them, I've noticed this a big deal, that when somebody's doing this, we would take offense. But to them, they're just involved, but they think they're being present with you. So to them, they don't see they're offending you because they're here, because they haven't been taught anything else. We grew up without this, so we understand eye contact, we understand the smiling, we understand the conversations, hand gestures. We laugh, we don't go LOL. We laugh. We speak in full sentences instead of all the little emojicons that are out there. Not to say anything wrong with emojicons, I really do love emojicons, but sometimes when somebody sends me a text and it's nothing but emojicons, I don't understand what they're saying. Can you just say one word? Just give me a word on where we're going here. But I saw this emojicon where there was a hand, and it was two horses in the hand, and one horse looked like it was eating out of the hand, and I'm thinking, leave my horses out of hand, like you're eating out of my hand. Have I got you eating my hand? You know what it was? Hold your horses. I was like, what? What? And then I got offended. What do you mean, hold my horses? But I think it was because I was texting too fast, and they were just saying, hold on, let me catch up. But they sent me this picture with horses, and I really didn't. There's so many emojis out there. I don't get. I'm very confused on this one. So anyway, because of all of that, we would take offense. And then I would say, oh, that person doesn't like me because they're not talking to me appropriately or the way I want to be treated. I think that's one of the big things too, if I look about that. We look at somebody who says they're not liking me, and it's because they're not treating me right. So, okay, they can treat me any way they want to. It's not like, well, I won't say that. But anyway, back to Dr. Reynolds. I don't know if I said this or not, but I will say it now. If you're doing the best you can with what you have, worrying if people like you or not is a waste of your most precious resource, which is your energy. How much time and energy do we spend on whether or not somebody likes us? I read this article where they talked about when somebody puts a post up, the average time that they go back, the average times that they go back and look to see if anybody liked their post or retweeted is like 5 times a minute within the first 5 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, it goes down to like once or twice. And then after 15, that's it, because they've moved on to the next thing. But literally, once they post it, then they're seeing, did anybody like it? Did anybody like it? Did anybody say? Did anybody? Like, we need to make sure that people like that. Or, no, I'm guilty of this too. I've done it where I've posted something and then I'll go back and see, did anybody see it? Did anybody like it? And then I'll think, oh, why did I even post that? And I'll delete. And I'm guilty of deleting things. I don't want people, oh, that was stupid. I don't know why I said that. So I delete it because I think, oh, nobody liked it. I'm just going to delete it. It's goofy. Sometimes I just post pictures of food just to annoy people. So I would agree with Dr. Reynolds. In today's society, it's filled with many different venues to express dislike, judgment, and even hate. Truly, we have so many different ways that we can hate somebody. Cyberbullying is really big. I saw a little clip on Monica Lewinsky. You remember her? I mean, her biggest fault is she fell in love with a married man and really believed that they were going to be together. But she really didn't do any criminal act. I mean, she was going to lie, but she never did. So really, if you think about it, her only fault was that she fell in love with a married man. She had an affair with a married man. And yet, how horrible we were to her. So she's now actually coming out of hiding a little bit more and speaking up for bullying. I saw this little clip of her. It was actually quite beautiful. She talked about how She understands cyberbullying, and that, you know, in this one little thing, everybody knows her. She's a tramp, she's a whore, she's a slut, or just that woman. And she talked about how that really affected her when nobody knew her. She said, everybody knew of me, but nobody knew me. I really liked that sentence. And sometimes that's what happens. We get on the bandwagon, there's people going, and we add, and then before you know it, cyberbullying happens and we don't even know who the person is. Everybody doesn't like them, so let's all hate this individual. Kind of makes me think about when I was growing up, Geraldo Rivera had his own daytime talk show, and he connected his audience. His audience was high school students, and they did a live feed. This is when it was new. No internet out there, so all you millennials who are watching, this was in like a satellite feed. So they did a satellite feed to a studio in Russia of Russian high school students. So the American students and the Russian students are talking to each other. And their number one topic was, why do you hate us? Well, we don't hate you. Well, you hate me. Well, I don't hate you. Well, I don't hate you. Well, then why do we hate each other? And they went on and on. I actually really liked it because they talked about their generation didn't hate each other, but it's their parents who want them to hate each other when they have no desire to hate each other. I thought that was so enlightening to see, and I remember, I don't know, that was back in the 80s. So that's how old this topic has been, about how hating and liking and reacting and blah, blah, blah by word of mouth, I guess, is the best way I could see it. But I thought that was quite enlightening, how sometimes we hate because we're told to hate. The Ku Klux Klan is a great example of that. White supremacists, same example of that. Hitler, hate because you're told to hate. So, hey, this is what we have to do. So there's got to be a time in our lives where we say no, and we stand up for what we believe in. Of course, those are the extremes. So, so I've experienced this firsthand, where people are disliking and then they judging, and it escalates to hate. You get so obsessed with it. Like every conversation you have, it's about did you hear what this person did? And it goes on and on and on and on. And I've kind of been in the middle, and I've listened to both sides, and it just escalates and escalates. And as an observer, you watch them getting angrier and angrier, and finally they're not listening to each other anymore. They're just trying to be the one who could be the meanest comment. Back and forth and back and forth. And then of course finally you have the ultimate insult, unfriend, or hang up the phone, or disconnect and change the number. But sometimes that's what happens when people are in that fixed position. We hate, and we stop listening. We stop understanding why is this person so upset. And again, like I said, we get emotionally attached, emotionally involved. This is where emotional intelligence is important, where I have to recognize how much energy do I put into something, or how much do I just let it go. Like Dr. Reynolds said, that we're losing we're wasting our most precious resource, which is our energy. There are some people who, I'm not somebody that when you go online, I didn't even know this existed until like a year ago, but like you go to YouTube and there's the comments section, and people can make comments about the video or comments about somebody else's comments. And I guess that's what Twitter's about too, but I don't watch Twitter that much. But I think you make the comments about somebody's comments, and so in Twitter, the most recent comment goes to the top or the bottom. I don't remember the whole thing, but it's like just people commenting off of comments off the comments off the comments. And it's kind of disturbing if you've ever read some of them, that they're angry and vile. It's like, what? I get surprised sometimes at how vicious people are, and they don't even know. It's just like they're flexing their internet muscles, and I find that sad to think that that's kind of where our society has gone to right now, where my comment's just as important, and we take offense when somebody makes a comment that we don't like, and well, let me tell you about you, so well, you don't know what you're talking about, so I'll clarify it. And then once you clarify it and they still disagree with you, well, you're a pinhead. And then off they go, and it's like, that's an irrational comment. But that's what happens when we get emotional. So emotional intelligence is quite necessary. So as I said, I've been the observer to many debates. I've been the observer to dysfunctional situations and you just watch it unfold. In my early days, I used to try to jump in and settle something. That's the stupidest thing to do when you got two people going on and you go, here I come to save the day. And you're gonna, here's what this person means and here's what this, and then they both turn on you. You're just like, whoa, never mind, I'm gone. So the one thing that I did come to the understanding was I learned the phrase agree to disagree a while back. So when I was first taught this, I thought it was a coward's way of ending a fight. Well, let's just agree to disagree. What? But then the more I've used it and understand it, I've come to an understanding. It means that when I get to a point that I've said pretty much everything I could say, and you've said everything you could say, we still don't agree, let's just agree to disagree, because we know the fight is not worth the fight. Now, saying that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be, because there are some people who like to fight. And they want the argument, and they want the debate. So when you say that you want to agree to disagree, well, that's just a coward's way, and and they'll fight with you for saying that you agree to disagree. I've also been taught to just go silent. I don't have anything else left to say, so you just sit there and look at them. Now this annoys the bejeebies out of some people. What's the matter? How come you're not talking? I just don't have anything else to say. Oh, you give in. If that's what you want to believe, okay. So those are the two things that I've been taught on how to de-escalate something that's getting escalated. It's just to come to a point where you literally say, I agree to disagree. You don't say, I agree to disagree, and go back to your computer and then write, that person, you don't do that. Or I used to use the illustration, write it in a letter and send it in the mail. You don't do that either. You just literally agree to disagree and drop it. Just, okay, subject's done, move on. When you have the people who like to fight, when they want to flex their muscles, sometimes they like the physical brawl or the internet muscles and stuff. When it comes to those people, there really isn't much you can do. Sometimes people just want to fight. Whatever's going on in their life, they need to feel a victory. They need to feel a win. So let them have a win, I guess, would be an appropriate thing to do as well. I know I've seen this, and I've done this a couple of times with kids, where they're arguing with me about something that I do know, and they're arguing, no, that's not right, and they're getting escalated, and I'll say, okay. I'm trying to remember one of the ones where there was this thing about Shakespeare wrote Hamlet. Let's just say that. Shakespeare wrote it. Well, one of these kids, no, it wasn't Shakespeare, it was, I don't know, so just pick a word. So tell me somebody.
Sir Francis Bacon.
Well, he really did do it, but I was thinking of Copernicus. Copernicus wrote Hamlet. Well, no, and this can go on and on. You know you're right. You know that you have the information, and they're adamant about it. Well, then it really doesn't hurt to just say, okay, and not continue the fight. And then, eventually what happens, they come back to you and say, oh, yeah, you were right. And sometimes they don't, and that's okay too. But that's often a struggle. When you know something, and then a person is telling you not, and then it starts getting escalated, and they walk away and they, oh, I hate you. Sometimes they say things like that. You just have to not take it personal. Really, that's what it comes down to, is not taking it personal. That's such a popular phrase, not taking it personal. What does it really mean? Because it is personal if you think about it. It's not my point of view, so that's personal. So not taking it personal, how do you not get offended when somebody disagrees with your point of view? And this is why we get upset. Because we think by disagreeing with my point of view, you're disagreeing with me, my very essence, and I have no value. And that's very difficult to handle when somebody feels like they don't have any value. The number one encouraging thing in the workforce is to have your employees feel valuable. When an employee no longer feels valuable, their productivity goes down, their attendance drops, their interactions with relationships in the workplace all goes down. But as soon as they feel valuable, increased energy, increased performance, you might end up getting a leader out of some of these individuals. So when it comes to feeling valuable, I think that's what equates to when somebody feels like you disagree with them or you don't like them, you're essentially saying you have no value to me. And that's what I might think why we take offense is, well, who are you to say I don't have any value? And this, of course, we also can say it comes down to confidence. That we're secure in, what's that word I like this line right here. I'm confident to be comfortable in my own skin. So I'm confident enough to be comfortable in who I am in my own skin. So whether you're goofy, whether you're intellectual, whether you're an emotional basket case was judgmental. Whether you're emotionally free emotionally expressing, be comfortable in your own skin, not have to alter yourself for the way other people think of you. There's a great quote that I found. It says, this is by J.K. Rowling, which, by the way, she wrote Harry Potter. That's from my husband. He didn't know who the author of Harry Potter was. How do I find the only man on the planet who doesn't know who wrote Harry Potter? But anyway, I'm sure he's not the only one. He's behind the camera. So, don't not like me. Sorry. So J.K. Rowling wrote, indifference and neglect often do more damage than outright dislike. And I agree with that. When I neglect somebody or I'm indifferent to them, I'm actually causing more damage than if I just don't like you. I could just not like you but be at peace with you. But neglecting you, intentionally being indifferent to whatever's happening for you, that might be a bit of a challenge. I saw today Good News Network had an article where a 12-year-old girl was almost abducted from the front of her school in California. I think it was yesterday or the day before. So 12 years old, she's smaller and tinier, so she didn't look like she was 12. And she was walking into school, and this homeless woman, or appeared to be homeless, she didn't have any shoes on, comes up and hugs her to pretend she knows her, and then starts dragging her away from the front of the school. And the little girl's kicking and screaming, trying to get away, and it must have been like towards the end where there weren't any kids around. And so the little girl's frantic, and there was a woman in the car who saw it and rolled down her window and looked over at the little girl and mouthed to her, "Are you okay?" And she's shaking her head and her eyes popped, and then the lady's like, "Hey, that's my daughter, what are you doing?" Like she yells out the window to the woman, and the woman sees her and kind of hightails it out of there. Well, the mom got out of the car and grabbed the little girl, and they went inside and called the police, and they arrested the woman for kidnapping, I think is what they arrested her. But one of the bystanders said, it was amazing that there were so many cars that went by and only one woman said anything. Like there were so many people who could have done something. That's indifference. We can cause a little bit of harm, or that could have been a great deal of harm because we're indifferent to it. Oh, well, not my child. That can cause a great deal of harm. And then, of course, the neglect. When we neglect somebody, of course, my favorite story about neglect is the study that they did about orphanages and children, well-fed babies, taken care of, well-fed, but they turn their backs to the wall and die. And the research was the reason why the babies were dying is because they weren't loved. Like they were just being taken care of and changed, but nobody loved them. So they prescribed holding the babies and singing them, and before you know it, the mortality rate went down and success rate went up on that one. So neglect really does have an impact on individuals, which is not disliking. You can dislike somebody, but it's not the neglect part. So anyway, back to the idea. As I said earlier, the agree to disagree. We have to have emotional intelligence on this one, being aware how much energy I'm going to put into the conversations or whether or not somebody agrees with me or disagrees with me. As a matter of fact, those of you who are watching on Facebook, do a thumbs down. I want to see how many thumbs down I can get and not be offended by that. Of course, I can find out who you are, so that doesn't matter, really. But I'm kidding, you know I'm kidding. So to have control over my emotion in a manner that I take no offense to anyone who dislikes us. I like Dr. Wayne Dwyer had a quote where he said, our freedom is the ability to take no offense to anyone who we stand before, or something. I know I just totally misquoted that, but that's the idea, to take no offense, to look for no offense and take no offense. So in conclusion, what I think about is, the topic of this was, wait, what? You don't like me? Because sometimes we get caught by, wait, what? We get caught by the surprise that what do you mean you don't like me? It would be great if when we discover somebody doesn't like us, we don't even heed it a second thought. Okay, and just move on. I think that would be a great, tremendous stride for humanity if we ever reach that peak. Unfortunately, I don't see it happening quickly, but it's something to strive for. Here at Omega, this is what we strive for. I'm going to try to do a commercial for Omega. To reach the place where I'm confident enough to be who I am in my own skin. That probably didn't go right. We're going to do a lot of editing on this video. So thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you for everyone who plugged in. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. And honestly, I have forgot what my topic is for 2 weeks from now, but I did publish it in the newsletter. So I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye now.